When you think about what makes a luxury hotel truly exceptional, what comes to mind? Is it the design? The location? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the single most important element, the people. We're talking about the pre-opening blueprint for building a hotel's living, breathing soul.
Hello and welcome. As a hotel AI expert, I spent my career in the thick of modern hospitality operations, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you from the Europe Hotel School. Think of this as your inside look, your backstage pass, to how world-class teams are built from the ground up.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with a philosophy, the why. Then we'll get into designing the human blueprint itself. After that, we'll talk numbers, how you get to a head count. We'll cover the all-important hiring timeline, and finally, wrap it up with how to execute the entire master plan. Let's get into it.
All right, first things first, we have to start with the big idea, because before a single key card is ever issued, a hotel has to discover its soul. And spoiler alert, that soul is its people.
You can have the most beautiful building in the world, but if it feels empty, it's nothing. A hotel is really just a vessel. The real magic, that feeling of welcome and warmth, that comes from the team. So this pre-opening phase, it's not really about construction. It's about creating a culture.
And that brings us to a concept I really want you to remember. It's called human architecture. It's this idea that you design your organization with the same level of detail and care that an architect uses for the building. This human blueprint literally defines how the team works together, how they solve problems, and ultimately, whether the hotel can actually deliver on its promise of luxury.
Okay, so how do we make human architecture a reality? Well, the very first practical step is turning that big idea into a tangible document, the organizational chart.
And right away, you can see there's no single right way to do this. The org chart has to mirror the hotel's identity. A trendy little boutique hotel, it's probably going to have a flat structure where people wear a lot of different hats. But a huge, sprawling luxury resort, you're going to need a much deeper, more specialized hierarchy just to manage the sheer scale of the operation. Now, most hotels start with these classic building blocks, right? You've got your rooms division, food and beverage, admin, sales, engineering. These are the pillars. But where modern luxury gets really exciting is when it starts to blur the lines between these traditional silos. And that leads to some really cool, innovative roles. Case in point, the service ambassador. This role is a total game changer. It's a modern, multi-skilled position that throws the old rulebook out the window. Just imagine the same person who greets you and checks you in also brings you to your room, and then later, they're the one mixing your cocktail at the bar. This one little change in the org chart has huge ripples, forcing you to hire for personality and versatility, not just a narrow skill set. Okay, so we've sketched out our human blueprint. We know the roles we need. Now it's time to attach some real numbers to those boxes on the chart. We're moving from the art of organizational design to the science of manpower planning. A really good rule of thumb in the luxury world is the guest room to employee ratio. You're typically looking at anywhere from a 1-to-1 to a 2-to-1 ratio. So what does that mean? For a 300-room hotel, you could be looking at a staff of anywhere from 300 to even 600 people. That's the secret sauce that allows for that super personalized, we thought of everything service. But we get way more specific than that using data. Take housekeeping, for example. This isn't just guesswork. You start with your projected occupancy, let's say 250 rooms are sold tonight. Then you look at your productivity standard. Maybe one attendant can clean 15 rooms in a shift. You just do the math. 250 divided by 15, boom, you need about 17 attendants for that shift. You do similar calculations for every single department. And here is a pro tip, something that's absolutely critical in a 24/7 business like a hotel. For any job that needs to be covered around the clock, you can't just hire one person. You need what we call a relief factor. To cover all the shifts, weekends, vacation time, and sick days, you actually need between 1.4 and 1.8 employees for every single one of those positions. Forgetting this is one of the most common and costly mistakes you can make. So we know who we need and we know how many. The next massive question is when do we hire them? Because bringing everyone on board at once would be a financial nightmare. The whole process has to be carefully, strategically phased. This timeline is your roadmap. It all starts way out, a year to a year and a half before opening. That's when you hire your architects, the executive committee, your GM, your heads of HR and finance. They set the vision. Then, around 6 to 9 months out, the department heads come in to build the actual playbook for their areas. After them, the supervisors and specialists. And finally, in the home stretch, just 6 to 10 weeks out, You bring in the cavalry, the frontline staff, timed just right to dive into intensive training right before opening day.
All right, let's bring it all together. We have the plan, we have the timeline. Now let's talk about the tools you use to actually execute this thing and bring it to life. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Now let's talk about a tool that is so easy to overlook, the job description. In a luxury pre-opening, I promise you, this is not just a boring list of duties, it's a strategic document. It's your first chance to inject the brand's culture and its philosophy of service into a role, right from the very beginning. It's about defining purpose, not just tasks.
I mean, look at this example. Any hotel's job description for a concierge could say, provide information. But a luxury hotel's job description says, curate bespoke, memorable local experiences. See the difference? That one shift in language completely changes the expectation. It attracts a totally different candidate. You're not hiring an info clerk. You're hiring an experienced architect. This quote right here really sums it all up perfectly. The org chart and the Manpower plan, they're not just paperwork you file away. They are the hotel's DNA. They set the code for how the hotel will operate, how healthy it will be, and its ultimate potential for success right from day one.
And if you're still wondering why all this planning and precision is so incredibly important, well, just look at this chart. Labor is, almost without fail, the single biggest expense on a hotel's budget, by far. So getting your human architecture right isn't just about creating amazing service. It's about ensuring the hotel is financially healthy and profitable for the long haul.
So we've walked through the blueprint for building a hotel team today, but the industry never stands still. And that leads me to a final question I want to leave with you. As the future leaders of this industry, what's next? With new technology and constantly changing guest expectations, what do you think the next evolution in a hotel's human architecture will be? That's the question you'll be answering in your careers.